Okay, so as Andrew said, I'm Sandi Connelly. I teach in College of Science. I actually spend quite a bit of time in this room. And I also teach over in the large lecture hall, which I don't know if you've been in yet, in 1250, which is on the other side of the building, stadium seating sort of idea to it. I teach roughly 360 students a quarter, so I empathize with the no learning of the names sometimes. So my kids make fun of me and my staff that work with me make fun of me, but everybody is sweetie, hun, dear, love, whatever the case may be, whatever endearing term comes out at the moment. I don't know that my boss is real thrilled with that sometimes. Worries about lawsuits, things like that. But the students have taken very well to it, and they have written on their evaluations. She is the only one, other than my mom, that can call me love, and I don't get offended. So we'll go with it. So there are a couple of things following up from Andrew before we kind of get into things. The most shocking things to your students will actually be seeing you in Wegmans. You don't eat, you don't sleep, you don't do anything other than stand in front of them and make their lives fabulous. Well, come on now. We know better than that. But yeah, seeing you in frozen foods at like 10 o'clock at night is just a shock to their system. So be prepared for that. If they see you out at a restaurant, that's even worse. So be prepared for that. And I am the advisor for the Quidditch team, so, okay. So you see that you guys are going to get involved in a lot. You're going to get pulled in a lot of directions. So the idea becomes, how do you make your time in the classroom valuable for the students, valuable for you, okay? And make it so that it's not a constant struggle, okay? And for some of you, you're like, well, I'm going to go in and I'm going to stand there and I'm going to be sage on the stage and everything's going to be perfect from day one. Yes? Sure, we'll be positive for a moment. And when it isn't on day one, you need to kind of think about how you're going to deal with that. Okay. We have a lot of things going on, and unfortunately my whales didn't come out, so it's sadness. But we have a lot of things going on, not only in the classroom, right? We're thinking about all the technologies. Andrew axes technology from class. I haven't quite gotten to that point yet. First, because I'm not going to monitor 220 students at a time, whether or not they're texting their mom about the fact that they need money in their bank account. I don't care. Okay. If you don't want to pay attention, I'll see you at the exam. But it's one of those things where you have to decide what's going to work for you, okay? What's going to work for your students, okay? And how you're going to make sure that that interaction between you and the students that are really engaged, the ones that are, you don't have to worry about those students, right? The ones that are sitting in the front row on the first day with the notepad out, the pen out, and they're like, no, you don't have to worry about them. They're fine. And they will continue to be fine. It's the ones, you know, they don't have to be in the back row. We always associate the back row with the bad kids. Lynn's in the back. She's not a bad kid. Okay? We always associate them with the bad kids. No. Okay? It can be the kid in the second row. That from day one, you know there's just something that's going to make you go home at night and call your mom. Okay? So there's going to be something that just really kind of throws you off. And so how do you deal with these sorts of things? And so we can think about the classroom kind of being in this chaotic state. Well, we prefer not, right? This isn't Animal House in its entirety. So what we have to think about, though, is the fact that it's also, you know, not 1950 anymore, right? They showed this thing, right? Okay. They made an entire series of how to teach. Sounds fantastic, right? Until, okay.
The vast majority of behavior problems in the classroom involve minor breaches of discipline. These incidents frequently originate in the classroom situation itself and are within the control of the teacher. Disciplinary problems in the classroom are symptoms of underlying weaknesses in total learning situations.
All right, now first of all, let's think about our learning situations. Are some of us going to be in a classroom where we really do kind of have our back to the board, we're doing problems and things like that? The days of, shooting spitballs and things like that are not necessarily gone, okay? But the technologies really lend themselves to different types of distractions, right? And as you could kind of see in the video, it wasn't necessarily distracting for the professor, right? Who's it distracting for? All the other students, right? So that's really one of the things that I think we sort of have to talk through is, first of all, what is harmony going to be in your classroom? Okay? And the original title of this was something like classroom management or something. I forget what Anne gave me, but I'm like, Anne, you're killing me. So, we had to foof it up a bit. So how do we maintain this kind of harmony in your classroom? Because what we have to think about is it is not going to be the same day to day. The first day of class, they're excited. They're nervous, they're anxious, they're all those things you guys texted in to Andrew's poll, right? The students are the same. So how do we get past that to day 2? And then how do you get past that to, in some cases, day 20, when they're tired? Different distractions are now in place, right? They have an exam in the course after yours, they don't care about your course, they're studying for their next exam. How do you get all of this kind of balanced out? And so when I say harmony, I'm really thinking more along the lines of, from day to day, how do we maintain this kind of balance for ourselves? So we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about why it's so hard to achieve, okay? Why can't you just go in and stand up here and say, pay attention to me? Well, you can. If you like low enrollments and bad evaluations, that'll work really well for you. But the problem becomes then developing that line of respect that you guys have been talking about today, and that you'll continue to talk about tomorrow. Because you most certainly are in charge. Don't let them think otherwise, okay? But you also have to kind of be that give and take. Because if you come in and go, pay attention to me right now, right? That's when they may be staring at you, but that's all they're doing, right? Okay, so we gotta think about that a little bit. Why is it so critical? You guys just told me. We'll come back to it. But the biggest distractor is maybe not for you, although some of it gets a little annoying, okay? But what you'll find is you will start to tune out a lot, very quickly, all right? So how do you get beyond that and really make it so it's a good environment for your students? I'll talk to you a little bit about what I do in my classes. Like I said, I typically teach a very large class, 2 of them a day, 2 very large sections. But I've also taught, the smaller seminar, conversational, back and forth kind of classes with 8 or 10 students. So, of course, it's a very different dynamic in those kind of scenarios. I want to hear from you guys. Okay, we've got a lot of experience out there, I see, which is probably very intimidating to those of you that have not taught before or that only have TA experience. I always, when you put up those polls and when you see that half of the room has been teaching longer than you've even thought about being a teacher, you're going, oh, yeah, okay? It's okay. We were all there at one point, okay? And then think a little bit about what is anti-harmony, okay? I don't want to necessarily call them the bad kids, but you know who they are, okay? Can we find them? Can we figure out how to deal with them in a particularly positive kind of situation, okay? So first of all, what is harmony? Well, apparently I should have picked something other than harmony in your classroom as my title, because I get tuneful sound, simultaneous music notes, pleasing arrangement of parts. Well, that's not so bad, right? Okay, if we think about a pleasing arrangement of parts, the parts don't necessarily have to be tangible items, right? They could be, okay? They could be your intellectual interaction with the students, and that's all fabulous, okay? But how do we get to that? Okay? So for you, What would be a perfect classroom kind of scenario? Your chairs aren't here, it's okay. Yeah,
Fair amount of discussion with students.
good discussion.
One person talks at a time.
One person talking at a time.
Everyone's engaged.
Everyone's engaged. What size of your classes? Would you prefer the little intimate groups of 10? Do you want the big classrooms where you're the talking head down front? What do you want?
Smaller.
Smaller? Well, I think, yeah.
Yeah, but not too small, because if you
Okay,
Then it gets
so
big.
now you're in a little room with a couple of people and you're like, oh God, they're all staring at me. Okay, put me back in the big classroom, I can be the talking head again. Okay, so for you, I mean, short of calling in Disney and Pixar, I mean, this is not gonna be rainbows and singing birds all the time, right? But you can get close. You can, okay? And you can make it so when the students come into your classroom, they know they are in a positive, interactive learning environment that feels good, if we could say that, okay? They wake up in the morning and they go, ah, I get to go to so-and-so's class today. Or they can wake up in the morning and go, oh, God. Not that unorganized, unstructured, completely upheaval of a class. They just won't go, right? Okay, if they get to that point. So what we have to think about is, how do you maintain that kind of level of harmony that you really envision, right? Okay. So when we look at those kind of harmony structures, you guys want small but not too small. Engaged but not creepy, right? Okay. And really kind of a good discussion going on. Can you get that in a room of 220 kids?
Yeah, potentially you could.
Potentially you could,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But what we have to think about, and actually it came up in Chronicle Higher Ed a couple of weeks ago, regardless of the size of your class, regardless, 5 to 7 students will make 75 to 95% of the comments and answer the questions. I don't care if you have 10 students, or you have 210 students, or 120, or 60, or 90. 5 to 7 of those students are going to be this, right? You ask a question, you have not finished the question, and they're like, me, answer, me, okay? Put your arm down, okay? So how do you get beyond that, but still maintain this level of structure that you want? Suggestions? Yeah.
I tried once, but it wasn't successful.
Oh, okay. Horror stories from the trenches. Ready? Go.
And I had a few students who dominated the class, so I actually gave them tickets.
Excellent.
And I wanted everybody to turn in 1 ticket every class.
Okay.
And of course, the one student used her ticket and then was trying to steal everybody else's tickets.
Fantastic. Negotiating for yapping rights. I love it. Okay. All right. So his idea, did everybody hear that? I'm worried that the folks in the back are here. Okay. All right. Yeah.
You just call on particular people and ask them to answer your question.
Perhaps you just call on people. You break out that big old class list we have you print out, and you go,
You over here? You over
and you, and you, and you. Okay? Possibility. And it works. Why does it work? Well, it works on multiple levels because they don't know if they're going to get called on, right? So they have to be prepared. They don't know if they get called on and they're not there. So this works on your participation end of things too, right? Okay, what else? Somebody else had their hand. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I do a variation on that, where I send, actually I post them on my courses, study questions for the assigned reading.
Okay.
So then, and then I tell the students in advance, you need to be prepared, and I will call on people because I'm interested in hearing, you know, from more people.
Yeah. So, and if you tell the students from day one, this is getting back to Andrew's ideas of what are you going to do on the first day of class? If you tell them from day one, hey, I'm going to randomly call out names to answer questions throughout the quarter. If you're not here, this is what's going to happen. Okay? if you're here and in a large class are not telling me you're here, it's the same as not being here, right? Okay, but it also takes away the stress of the people in the back or the people in the middle or the people in the front that just don't want to put their hand up, right? So you're getting more of this engagement that you guys want without going you and you and you and you, right? It's a very different sort of scenario or different way to go about things. And you can maintain those levels throughout the entire quarter in that kind of fashion, sure. But why is it so hard to achieve? These things are easy, right? You bring in your class list, you go, Joe, answer the question. Okay, Joe. Well, Joe's not here, so Susie, answer the question. Okay, so, you know, how do you get, or you tell them, you know, you're gonna have discussion questions. You gotta be able to come in and be ready to discuss this. So why is harmony such a kind of a bad word anymore? Because we don't know how to get to it. Why? What's going on that this is bleh? Okay? What's going on for you that makes this hard?
People
Yeah.
are shy.
Oh, because
People are shy.
People are shy.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't wanna, there's no volunteer, no, okay.
Some of the students are me, and like one student wants to talk all the time.
Yes, we'll talk about some stories from the trenches of the, oh, please call on me. Yeah,
I was just gonna say, you want it to feel natural, and a lot of times you have to force it or draw it out of people.
right. All right, now, yeah, go ahead.
There's time constraints.
Time constraints, right? Most of you are probably teaching 50-minute classes. You have no idea how fast 50 minutes goes, right? At first, it will feel like you're looking at the clock, like every 5 minutes. And then the next class, you could talk for hours, right? Yeah, you had one?
Yeah, I was saying, there's a lot of moving parts other than the time constraint, so you're
Yeah,
trying
there's lots of moving parts. You come in, the lights aren't working right. You come in, the AC's not on. You come in and your computer's crashed out. You know, there are all kinds of things, right? And that's all right. You don't have to worry about that. We'll get through that. But what else is going on for you? We said you're not the sage on the stage anymore, right?
Well, you're trying to interact with with people who are in completely different states. So you might have somebody who's having a great day, they're ready to learn. You might have somebody who's had their mother just.
So you're interacting with, so you're interacting with a lot of different types of different levels. Some of them are really excited to be there. Some of them just stubbed their toe on the way in. Somebody has a dead dog you have to deal with. Somebody has problems at home you have to deal with. Somebody's financial aid isn't coming through. All these things, right? Well, you have all the same problems, right? Back to the whole idea that Andrew was getting at with you. You have to be a person, and it's okay to be a person to an extent. Okay? So on the first day of class, as Andrew was saying, I tell him about me. Okay? I have a series of slides because every year I do a survey question on my courses, which is great. If you don't know the survey feature on my courses, stop by and see me or ask the wonderful people at 255-1 and they will help you out. But the idea is, I tell them to send me a question, any question they want. I tell them, I prefer it's not about the class, but they can ask me anything they want. Some of them I won't answer. I've gotten some risque questions over the years. And we discuss in class why I'm not answering some of them. But others, you know, where'd you grow up? What was your favorite pet? You know, all these sorts of things. And you just answer, I answer a few of those at the beginning of every class. And they go, oh, this is kind of like me, you know? You have the same sorts of issues, the same sorts of distractions. Okay? My family's gone through a lot of stuff this summer with my dad being in cancer treatment. And I'll tell my kids about it, because they need to know, okay? Because when we get to that topic in class, I'm likely to bring my Kleenex, and they're okay with that, okay? But you have to get that kind of dynamic going, that it's okay for you to maintain that kind of level of harmony and understand that it's going to be different from day to day, okay? The other thing is, with some of our staff support, okay, we get assigned interpreters, typically for our courses, but there'll be some courses you teach where, depending on the timing, you may have a different interpreter every day that you teach. So now you gotta deal with that different dynamic. So you gotta keep this whole kind of positive environment going, but it's all gonna be up to you. You are gonna have to decide, what are you gonna deal with? Are you gonna deal with texting? Are you gonna deal with a student that leaves the room talking on her phone? Okay? Are you gonna deal with the students that, you know, are signing to one another and not about class for 25 minutes on time? What are you gonna do about the person that eats and gets things everywhere? What are you gonna do about the person that's typing very, very loudly? What are you gonna do? What are your limits? Okay? And if you maintain those limits throughout, you get an environment in which everybody is excited to be there. Okay? And why is it so critical? First, you have to maintain some level of sanity. Okay? You may feel sane now, or you may feel insane now, which is a bigger problem. Okay? But you know, come about week 5, 6, it's okay to have a breakdown. And even before that, if you need to, it's all right. Okay, stop by, we'll get coffee, we can have a breakdown together. I need one after day 1. So the idea becomes maintaining an environment that you are excited to go to, right? If you aren't excited to be in class, are your students? No. So we have to find a way to kind of make that work for you. This whole idea of you get what you pay for. I actually had a student write on an evaluation last year. I don't pay good money to come to your class and listen to so-and-so ask questions all the time. Okie dokie. You know, and I could have predicted that this student's name would end up on other students' evaluations that year. But still the idea is, how do you deal with those kinds of things? But in the end, what I think is most important is this positive learning environment. Okay. This is it's a buzzword. Everybody's using it now. We want engaged learning. We want a positive learning environment. Okay, but nobody tells you how to get there, right? And unfortunately, I can't shake the magic 8-ball and tell you how to get there either. This is something that you have to kind of build for yourselves. And for those of you that have been teaching for a while, know that. You know, you try something and it doesn't work. And you're like, oh. And you'll tell everybody, all of your colleagues, this did not work. Okay? Axe it, move on. Okay? But the idea is creating that positive environment, and it doesn't matter what course you teach, right? I don't care if you're teaching sciences and COLA and performing arts, it does not matter, okay? It's getting to that place where learning becomes easy because the environment in which we're working, and really you are working with the students, right? So that environment in which you are working has to be gentle, positive, yet directive, right? Because they're there for a purpose. You are getting paid to teach them a particular thing, all right? Whether or not they learn it, that's a different story, okay? But the idea of keeping kind of this positive environment then makes the learning of the more difficult materials easier. If they don't have to worry about, if you have already pre-established your guidelines for what the classroom environment is going to be, and you stick to it, that's the bigger thing. You can stand up here on day 1 and go, we're gonna do this, and this. And then on day 3, you throw that all out the door. Well, if you're gonna throw it all out the door, you better stand back up here again and go, we're gonna now do this, this, and this, because this, and this didn't work in this class for these reasons. And be honest. Okay? We were talking about whether or not you admit to them that it's your first time teaching. That is totally up to you, as we talked about. But it's amazing how supportive they can be in an environment that is changing not only for you, but for them. Right? And learning our materials becomes a much more integrative sort of approach. So my student in row 2, and I don't mean to pick on Campbell, I just sat with him at lunch today, but I had a student that sat in that seat. And forever, I will hate that seat. And the reason is,
It's magic.
this student, every time I gave them, I teach biology, general biology to typically freshmen, but all course levels, because it's a non-bio majors class. So I get everybody, business majors, art majors, everybody comes through my doors. So every time I said something, a definition, asked them a question, asked them about a process, the answer was,
It's magic.
it's magic. There is nothing, on the first couple of days you go, oh, isn't that cute? Isn't he adorable? And it only took me about until the end of class on day 2 when I wanted to strangle him. And unfortunately, what about all the people around him?
Hate him.
Hate him. Big time. It was cute, they giggled the first couple of days, and then day 2 wanted to strangle him. So, what do you do? Yeah.
Yeah, you should pull the student aside privately, you know, kind of talk to you after class and
So
talk to them
I
first why
did.
they want to say that answer all the time and try and explain why that's inappropriate.
What else? And pull them aside. I can just strangle them in class, whatever. Yeah.
Redirect your questions towards specific students rather than that one.
Okay, so what we were talking about earlier, you can say, Joe, answer this question. Susie, answer this question. Yeah.
Tell him the reason he's getting an F is because it's magic.
Fantastic. I wish I would have thought of that one. So I did pull him aside. I asked him to stay after class. And he told me the reason that he answers that way is because he's nervous from a disability. Now what do I do?
He's socially awkward.
What do I do? Yeah.
I try and make it like something humorous in class, where, you know, I would actually like address it before he even like answered. I'd be like, you're right, it's magic. Okay, let's move on, you know?
Okay, so kind of
yeah.
cut him off at the pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, there are resources on campus like the counseling center, so you might want to coordinate with them a plan for dealing with the issue.
That's great. I mean, so you can't, there are tons of resources, and I'll give you a list kind of at the end here, and Ann has a list of resources for, I think, tomorrow too, for dealing with more of these kind of odd situations in the classroom. But what you have to think about is you can't let it frazzle you, right? Because if you snap at a student, it's not the end of your job. They won't take your job away. Not usually. So, but how is that for everybody else in the class?
Well, it creates a us versus them.
Yeah, so all that time you spent making harmony and happiness just went and it could be on the last day of class, and they could lead with that, okay? Now, in all honesty, did I snap at the student? Okay, so he was with me 30 weeks. He was with me all year.
Oh.
I talked with him after almost every class. I talked with the counseling service. I asked him to sit in another seat so that maybe, you know, he'd be less anxious. I don't know. But it went on for 30 weeks. And in week 29, I will flat out admit, I snapped at him in class. And the whole class went, and then they applauded. And then I had a student write on an evaluation that I berated a student in class. And what do you think, which evaluation do you think my chair read? Mm-hmm. But it was okay. Okay, this is why everybody was talking, a couple people were talking about POWs at lunch today. They're not prisoners of war. They feel like it, but they're not. They're plans of work for the next year and your annual review. and you get a chance to go in and defend these negative things that you get. You will get negative comments. It's okay. If it means that you are maintaining a level of respect in your classroom, they will be outweighed by the good ones, I promise. Yeah, Kim.
I'm just thinking, I'm sort of a problem solver, so when I hear that story, I thought, you know, could disability services assign someone to him? Maybe he could have written down his answers, and they could have read it for him. Or.
So we tried that, we gave him a buddy.
Okay.
His buddy turned out to be worse than he was. So it just was one of these, and I tell you that not because I got myself in trouble, part of it, but in the long run, it's gonna be, you're gonna have these situations that you are kicking yourself because you don't know what to do with them, okay? And that's just the way it goes. So what do you do? Yeah.
But after 29 weeks of dealing with it, really, I mean, you were punished for one slip of the tongue?
Well, because on the evaluation, all it says was Dr. Connelly berated a student. And it made me feel uncomfortable. That's all they saw. Now, that was after having, you know, 150 evaluations that said nothing but glowing things. But that'll be the one thing that took out. So I'm not telling you to frighten you, okay? But I'm telling you, you will have a leg to stand on these sorts of things. And your chair, if you have an open relationship with your chair, then, well, extend your harmony circle outside of your classroom. They're gonna support you on these things too, okay? And it never went beyond the written thing on my evaluation. It could have, sure. The student could have told his parents and everything could have snowballed and blah, blah, blah. It did. But I've developed a relationship with my chair and my associate chair and other faculty in my department that if it would have gone beyond that, I knew I'd support. Okay? And that's what I encourage you guys to do a lot of. Yeah.
We seem to be talking also largely about kind of your relationship with that student, but what about, you said the other students around were annoyed by this, and I can see where that would be really obnoxious to the other students in the entire learning environment. How do you deal with the rest of the students? I'm sure some of them coming to you saying, what is going on with this student? How do you keep the classroom going?
So I've seen some of you looking around the classroom. Here, now. There's some really obnoxious people in the room at the moment. Is there anything that's been bothering any of you? About any of the students, quote unquote? Yes, dear.
Yeah, well, I was ready to strangle my neighbor till I figured it out.
And why were you going to strangle your neighbor, my dear?
So distracted.
What's she doing?
Laptop, texting, her phone's whistling, eating, drinking really loudly.
She does that all the time, by the way. Okay, so.
All things a student normally would do. It actually wasn't. It was really interesting for me because I've seen students in my class
that's sitting on that side of it.
Some of these things, and now I realize what it's like to sit by someone.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
When she ran out, I said, that is so rude.
Fantastic.
I just realized, like, how can we expect our students to have a certain etiquette when we're doing the same thing?
And you guys are actually one of the better groups I've seen. I looked around while I was sitting over here while Andrew was talking, and most of you have been very attentive. I'm quite impressed. Okay? But what else? Yeah.
I didn't realize that these two were part of the plan.
What's up with these two? Signing?
Signing to each other.
Yeah. Was it distracting for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also came in late and sort of kind of pushed in and.
Oh, they came in during Andrew's and kind of shoved their way in, right? Right. Yeah. So this whole deal. And what I'm trying to show you guys is, I mean, I had kind of had it centered in little groups today, obviously. But this could be going on throughout your entire classroom. So here it was kind of obnoxious for the few people over here that were sitting behind my signers. You guys over here may not have noticed them at all, right? You're focused up here, or you find yourself kind of gazing at the interpreter, trying to learn signs as you go. Excellent. Okay. Looking at the PowerPoint's fine. When Shelley ran out of the room, more people turned. Most of the people in the room went. And when her phone rang, everybody's like. And then when she comes back in across here, I saw you all watch her go across here. And these rooms that have these double doors like this, you'll have that. Especially the first week or so until the students realize that this door comes in at the screen. Then they come in and they're like, and then instead of just moving, they stand there, like waiting for you to say, come on. Okay. So those sorts of things happen a lot, and we see these kind of things all the time. But like I said, you need to kind of know your limits. What are you going to put up with? Are you going to put up with students coming in late? If you're not, tell them on day one. Okay. Or if you say, you know, this is a 50-minute class. If you're going to come in 5 minutes late, please do so very quietly. In a room like this, you can say, please make sure you use the side doors, okay, so that you're not bothering all of the students around you. Now, when that door opens, will everyone turn and look? Sure. Okay. It's going to be a distraction regardless. Can you minimize it? Yeah, if you set that up from the start. Certainly. Okay. This positive classroom environment, make sure that you're thinking about that. Think about, like Andrew said, are you going to allow technology in the room? Do you care if they have their cell phones? Obviously, we hope they don't actually answer them. One other additional story. I had a girl 2 years ago. Her boyfriend always called halfway through my class. And she had her phone out, and she would, you know, do the hee silence it thing. I'm like, no. Took about a week for me to go up, and when it rang, I answered it. And I said, hello? And it turned out to not be her boyfriend that time, but her mother. And she says, oh, who is this? Are you one of her friends? I said, no, I'm her instructor, and we're in the middle of class at the moment. Oh, well, I've been looking forward to meeting you. Sweetheart, middle of class. She's gonna need to get back to you. And after that, did any phones ring? Not that I knew of. Okay? So there are things like that that you can have a lot of fun with, right? But you were asking me earlier about what do you do? What do these students that are surrounding this distraction do? I actually empower my students. Because I can't deal with 220 students in a room eating chips, typing on their laptop. And at this point, I'm not willing to cut out the technology entirely. Because for me, like I said, you will learn to block things out. I don't even hear it. Okay? They're signing, I totally ignore. It becomes one of these. I need to focus on the students that are with me, and these guys, I'm sorry, I love them to death, but I don't care. If they're gonna do their thing, they're gonna do their thing. Okay? So I empower my students. I tell them from day one, if someone around you is distracting you, smack them. Just haul off, give them a warning. Please stop that. You're bothering me. And then just haul off and hit them. Eventually, I will probably end up with a lawsuit over this. But for now, it is working really well. Because there will always be students that will not listen to me. I can tell them every single day till I'm blue in the face, shut up. Nicely. But shut up. But as soon as the students around them go, dude, really? It's a whole different thing. So that's up to you, okay? And kind of your personality, whether you're not, and I've seen students hit other students. So this is kind of fun. So what we end up with is kind of this much more lighthearted, positive, engaging environment because they're willing to take responsibility about their own learning, okay? So I wanted to give you guys already did all this. I wanted to give you the kind of this list for a moment, and then I want to hear whatever you guys have questions about. First of all, if you have Magic Boy, okay? I typically talk to my colleagues most about it, blah, 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 blah. But you can go on record at the Ombuds office, okay? They're still in the Student Center, I think, the Student Union, okay? Lovely people. Go in there and say, you know, I really just need to talk about the student in my class. You've gone on record that the student is a distraction in your class. The nice thing about this is you're not tattledealing, okay? The nice thing is if they get multiple reports about the same student, they can help intervene. They can get the student the help that they need. What's going on? Is there something at home? Is there a bigger problem that we're missing, okay? If it's a disruptive behavior but not threatening, make sure you go on record with your chair. Say, hey, and I even stop them in the hall and say, hey, you know, Magic Boy, issues again, and they kind of giggle about it with you and say, okay, what are we gonna do? Do you wanna go any further? Just so they have a heads up in case Magic Boy's parents call them, okay? They've got a heads up about what's going on. If it's a disruptive behavior and maybe threatening, but you're not sure, see your dean, okay? Get everybody on board with you. Get that support group we were talking about, get the harmony beyond your classroom, and pull it all together for you. If it's a threatening behavior of any kind, talk to no one, call public safety, okay? Not only is it a threatening behavior potentially towards you, but it may become a threatening behavior, of course, towards the other students. And it can be minor things. You know, the joking around in this day and age isn't well received anymore, right? Okay, the whole idea of going postal has really become front and center in academics, right? So we want this idea of threatening behaviors really to be taken seriously, and RIT does take it very, very seriously. If any of you have heard about the umbrella scare of 2012, we have not heard of the 2012 umbrella scare? No. Oh, stop by and see us, we'll tell you about the kids have t-shirts. So we take it very, very seriously, and that's a good thing for you. We want you to be safe, we want the students to be safe, and so on. So welcome to RIT. Try to be on time, don't be the missing T in RIT. Okay, keep your teaching together. Enjoy yourself. Go to Tiger Walk next week. It's fabulous on Thursday. Get all this, it just is the energy that you need to really kick you into gear to get you excited about Monday. For those of you that are already excited, it can always go up another notch, okay? So it's a great time. The students are fabulous. If you need to find me, I am actually just in this building, up on the first floor, okay? You'll learn that the A's are ground floor, and then first floor, you know, RIT special. So, thoughts, questions, concerns? Yeah.
So I worked in high school last year, and if there were an emergency, I had a panic button on the wall. How do we contact public safety if there's a threatening emergent situation?
2222. All of the rooms have phones. And you don't have to say anything, okay? Make sure I'm not doing something bad here. Okay. And there are phones in the hallways on every floor. So the idea is you can pick up this phone, you don't have to say anything, they will send somebody immediately to your location. Okay. So that's a nice thing. Yeah.
Will a text work to public safety, 2222?
You can't text 2222, but they do have a text line now. Usually the first week of class, public safety sends out a very nice email with all these sorts of things in it about how to get a hold of them. If you don't feel comfortable walking to your car at night, if you're here late for a class, they'll come and take you, those sorts of things. They'll send out a really nice email for you.
They're on the signs too and everything.
Oh, and the signs, yeah, there are these emergency kind of signs, what to do in case of emergency on every door in the classroom.
It's 3333
For the texting?
for emergency. I thought it was worth correcting.
They always told me to dial 2222.
The emergency is 475, so 3333.
3333.
Yes, so I would say on this phone it might be 5 and then 4 threes. That's
Okay.
what there might be like.
Okay, well, they told me.
Give it a whirl.
Yeah.
And on here it just says 333.
Okay. Look into that.
We'll figure it out by tomorrow and give you the real number for public safety. Anything else? Lynn's flagging me down with a giant hook. Yeah?
I'm just curious, what would threatening behavior be?
So what would a threatening behavior be? You could have a student that comes in and just seems very, the threatening behavior doesn't have to be towards you, okay? You don't have to have a student come in and say, I'm gonna kill you. That one you might wanna pick up the phone and call. But it certainly doesn't have to be that blatant, okay? I've had there was a student a couple of years ago. Once you're here long enough, you get all the fun stories. I had a student that used to follow me to my car every night. wasn't Magic Boy, it was another one. But it was just as kind of creepy weird. And I actually did call public safety and say, you know, it's not that he's ever approached me, he's never talked to me, he just seems to always be outside my office when I'm leaving. And at first it was, he would just kind of follow behind me all the way out. And after I talked to public safety, they said that they had had a report of him having an incident with another woman on campus as well. And so I stopped one night when he was following me. And I said, hey, did you want to ask me a question about class? And he went, no. And I said, well, you know, I'm walking out to my car, feel free to ask me questions if you want to. And then he disappeared for about a week, and then he came back a week later, and he had questions for me. So this threatening behavior that I perceived turned out to be nothing other than a shy student that didn't know how to ask questions. Okay. I didn't have the social skills that we would expect of an 18-year-old. But it could be something much more serious too, right? Students that come into the room and act very anxious, okay? Just seem very not themselves, okay? Would be something that I would either, if it seems to be escalating where they're kind of being very strong words with the other students or something like that, I wouldn't hesitate to call public safety. It is better to have them come by, and, you know, and sometimes all it is the students having a really, really bad day, but if it's enough to put the other students in the room on edge, I would consider it a threat. Whether it's a physical threat, emotional threat, does not matter, as far as I'm concerned. Jill, did you have something?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say about the videotaping, and then watching you at night, like watching the videotape.
Oh, yeah, and we're not gonna talk about the creepy student that used to videotape me. That's another story for another day. Yeah, we posted on Facebook, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, so you allow your students to use laptops.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you do when it becomes a distraction for other students? So it's one thing for that student to be totally disengaged, but that person's on ESPN.com and everyone
Well, I
else
tell
is
them from
watching.
day one, no porn. Okay, just flat out. Okay, not during class. And then I tell them that, you know, I had 2 students my first year that watched snowboarding videos my entire lecture all year long. But if I asked them a question, they knew exactly what I was talking about. So for them, they needed that kind of difference, kind of a distraction from the norm. But what I did was I had them sit over to the side so that they didn't bother the students around them. Now I have had students say, hey, the music video, can you turn it off? It's really too distracting. ESPN, can you stop updating your Facebook page? And that's what I said. For me, empowering the students is more important. Because I don't know, when the laptops are like this, I don't know what you're doing, right? So allowing the other students, and I tell the students, if there's a distracting behavior and you don't want to smack the student, which I don't know why you wouldn't take me up on that, but if you don't want to, see me after class. Let me know it's a problem and we'll shut it down. Yeah. Yeah.
You say that at the beginning of class, or do you say that several times throughout the course?
Oh, usually it's about once a week. Students don't have very good memories. And because, and as you've seen, all of us are kind of...
Like, just to clarify, like right at the beginning of class, you just remind them?
Yeah, yeah. I'll say, hey, today's going to be a laptop-free day. Because they're just getting to be too much. And they put them away for the day, and then I don't say anything about it the next class, and a couple of them will get them out. But then they eventually figure out what Andrew said, when the laptop's open, you don't work. Even if you tell me you're taking notes, this is now passive, okay? And I encourage you to talk to your students about that idea. Can they type and carry on a conversation? Most of us can. And you type exactly what you wanted to type in the email, you hit send, and you're still carrying on a conversation with somebody else. If you really want to engage in that active learning concept, this, the writing, is the way to go. Yeah?
Yeah, just I have a question. Have you ever asked a student to leave the classroom?
Oh, yes, most certainly. I had a couple right back there where the lady in the pink shirt is and in the plaid shirt beside her, they were making out.
You're so engaging.
I'm so engaging. It wasn't even reproduction week, but they were, you know. So I walked up and I said, you know, it looks like you're having a good time, but the couches outside are much more comfortable. And they left. Yeah, so it happens, and it doesn't have to be that extreme. I've shut down people for talking. They just want, this is, and you think that signing is distracting or Shelly's distracting with her food. No, this, 2 girls or 2 guys are like, oh my God, out. And I usually give them a warning. It's typically just a glare. I will stop. And I just stay. And the students around them are going, shut up! And it really kind of corrects itself usually. But feel free, if they have gotten to the point where you know your limits, right? So if it's gotten to your threshold, you're pushing your rev limiter, out they go. It's not fair to you, it's not fair to everybody else. And they can't, I mean, they can go complain to your chair if you want. And I would tell my chair after class, I'd say, hey, I kicked so-and-so out today because they just sucked. And, you know, then you've got support team. Yeah.
If someone falls asleep during the class, should you
Sleeping students.
Like in the first bench, sitting in the first bench?
Oh, if they're down here sleeping?
I mean, it's not a distraction unless they snore, but
The
still.
snoring is the distraction typically. Yeah, I actually had a very good student that often slept in this seat. And she still ended up with A's, and I really was disappointed in myself at that point. But she was just a good student. And burning, you will find the students, we think we're busy, and then we look at the student schedules. And it's just insane. So unless it becomes a distraction, they're snoring, they're falling out of their seat, they're injuring themselves, something like that. I typically don't mess around with it too much. I may go over and stand beside them and talk louder. But if it's bothering the other students, then I talk to them after class and say, hey, if you're that tired, stay home and sleep. Because you need the sleep more than you need to come to class. Lynn's really pulling out the big hook now, so. I will hang around for a little bit. If anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, I'm happy to do so, or come find me. I'm easy to find. Thanks, guys.